In a remote village deep within the thick forests of Sierra Leone, life flowed with a peaceful rhythm. Every day was much like the last, with the sun rising over the village's thatched roofs, casting a soft glow over the dew-kissed fields and jungle paths. The villagers lived simple lives tied to the land and its cycles, moving in harmony with each season. They were a close-knit community, bound together by shared joys and sorrows, where everyone knew one another and stories spread quickly. At the heart of the village stood a bustling marketplace, the center of social life, where villagers gathered to trade goods, gossip, and share meals. The market was always alive with color and sound, the chatter of traders, the laughter of children, the clinking of cooking pots. Among the many vendors was an elderly woman named Mamie Yada, who had become a beloved figure over the years. Known far and wide for her cooking, she sold rich, steaming bowls of meat stew from her small stall. Mamie Yada's cooking was legendary. Her stews were famed for their tender meat and mouth-watering flavors, with spices perfectly balanced to dance on the palate. Travelers from distant villages would stop just for a taste, and no one could resist her food. Some joke that Mamie Yada must have been blessed by the forest spirits for her stews to be so rich and savory. The villagers couldn't imagine a market day without the smell of her dishes wafting through the air. But no one knew the dark truth behind her success, a life of loss and sorrow. Years before, Mamie Yada had lived a very different life. She'd been a devoted wife and mother, married to a quiet man who worked the land. Together they raised their only son, Abu, who was the joy of her life. Abu was strong, handsome, and kind-hearted. Even as a young boy, he'd loved helping his mother with her stall, and as he grew older, he'd taken on the role of protector and provider for her. Then tragedy struck. Her husband died in a freak accident, leaving her and Abu to fend for themselves. Abu became her world, and they grew closer as they navigated life's hardships together. But as fate would have it, Abu fell gravely ill one rainy season. Despite Mamie Yada's care and desperate prayers, he slipped away from her, leaving her alone. The loss shattered her. For days she did nothing but sit in silence. Neighbors left offerings of food and gifts at her door, murmuring condolences, but nothing reached her. Abu had been her last connection to joy, and now with him gone, she felt hollow and bitter, as if her heart had turned to stone. After a long absence, she emerged from her grief with a quiet resolve, returning to her market stall, but with a noticeable change. She seemed colder, her gaze distant, and her words sparse. Returned to the market. The villagers noticed the change immediately. Though they were happy to see her return, there was something different in the way she moved and spoke. Her once warm smile was gone, replaced by an almost eerie calm, and while she greeted her customers with familiar politeness, her eyes held a strange, hollow look. Despite her altered demeanor, Mamie Yada's food tasted better than ever. Her stews were more flavorful, the meat impossibly tender, as though she had unlocked some secret recipe. The villagers were grateful for her food, especially during the hard times, and her stall became more popular than ever. No one questioned where she obtained her endless supply of meat. They were simply glad to eat something delicious. But then, strange events began unsettling the villages. One evening, a young girl named Sia vanished. Sia was known for her cheerful spirit and dream of becoming a healer. She was last seen gathering water from the river just before dusk. When she didn't return, her family grew frantic. Search parties combed the area around the river, calling out her name into the night, but no sign of her was ever found. The disappearance of Sia cast a shadow over the village. People whispered of dark omens and evil spirits, fearing a curse had fallen upon their home. The village elders performed rituals to seek guidance from the ancestors, but even their most sacred rites yielded no answers. Days passed and life in the village resumed, though an air of unease lingered. Then a fisherman vanished. He had left early one morning to fish at the lake and never returned. Again the village searched, and again they found no trace of the missing man. Fear grew, and the villagers began to stay indoors after dark, avoiding the forest paths. Yet through all this, Mamie Yada's stall thrived. Her pots remained full, her meat plentiful, and her stews more flavorful than ever. Some villagers remarked on the coincidence, but no one dared to voice their suspicions openly.
As more people went missing, a young mother, a hunter, and even an elder from the council, the villagers were filled with dread. Families huddled closer together, wary of venturing into the forest. Children were forbidden from wandering alone, and talk of an evil spirit spread quickly. The village elders sought answers through every means they knew, calling upon ancestral spirits, consulting seers, and performing rituals to protect the village, but nothing seemed to change. Despite the chaos, Mama Yada's stall was always the same. Her pots never emptied, and her food seemed richer with each new disappearance. People began to comment, half-jokingly, that at least her cooking brought them comfort in such troubling times. Still, whispers about her unending supply of meat began to grow. One person who couldn't ignore the unsettling coincidences was a young boy named Musa. Known for his sharp mind and love of adventure, Musa was always curious about the world around him. His family often scolded him for wandering where he shouldn't, but Musa's curiosity had only deepened with the recent disappearances. He'd always been fascinated by Mama Yada and her cooking, but now, something about her endless supply of meat gnawed at him. Musa began observing Mama Yada closely. He lingered by her stall, pretending to help his mother with shopping, all the while watching the old woman's movements. He noticed that she rarely bought meat from the hunters or traders. Instead, she seemed to have a never-ending source, and each time someone vanished, her stew became even more flavorful. His suspicions grew, and he confided in his closest friend, Amadou, who brushed off his concerns as wild imaginings. Yet, Musa couldn't shake his unease. He felt as though he were on the edge of uncovering a terrible secret. One night, Musa decided to take action. As the sun dipped below the horizon, he saw Mama Yada leaving the market. Quietly, he followed her from a distance, careful not to be seen. She walked slowly, her figure shrouded in the deepening shadows of the forest, and Musa's heart pounded with a mixture of fear and determination. Mama Yada led him deeper into the forest than he'd ever ventured before, beyond the familiar paths and into a part of the woods where even the bravest villagers dared not tread. Musa hid behind a tree, watching as Mama Yada stopped in a small clearing. To his horror, she began to dig with her bare hands, clawing at the earth until she uncovered a decaying body. Musa's breath caught as he saw her pull pieces of flesh from the corpse, placing them into a basket. He wanted to run, but his legs felt rooted to the ground. Finally, he mustered the courage to turn and sprint back to the village, his mind reeling with terror.